In this video, we clean install macOS High Sierra on a Windows 10 PC using VirtualBox. Hello everyone and welcome to TechFixFlix. Whilst many tutorials will help you successfully install macOS on a Windows PC, they typically share the foundation of directing you to download a pre-created virtual hard disk file. Whilst these downloads might be safe, and we have no reason to doubt them, creating a system based upon a disk image over which we have no authorship doesn't immediately fill us with confidence for our data security. In this tutorial, we will perform a clean installation of macOS. It might be helpful to start with a roadmap for this tutorial. We begin by using a physical Mac, which we only need to use very briefly, to convert the High Sierra installer app obtained from the Mac App Store by entering 6 straightforward commands into the terminal utility available on every Mac, outputting an ISO file. After that, we will transfer the output ISO file to our Windows PC, which simply involves copying a file of just under 6 GB from Mac to Windows. We will then create and configure a virtual machine on the PC and add 6 lines of extra data using the command prompt, which will enable the virtual machine to run. We will then use our installer ISO to load macOS onto the virtual machine, overcoming the apparent absence of a hard drive on which to install and a boot loop which would otherwise scupper the installation. Before we begin, you may be asking why we've selected High Sierra rather than Mojave. There are 2 reasons. Firstly, our physical Mac was a late 2009 model and therefore hardware barred from upgrading to Mojave by default, thereby blocking the download of the Mojave installer from the App Store. We can work around that by first creating our High Sierra virtual machine and using that to obtain the Mojave installer. More problematic in this instance is the lack of native support for APFS volumes, which is a requirement for Mojave. Whilst there are solutions which can successfully patch this, we'll tackle High Sierra as a more straightforward project in the first instance. Our project may fail at the first hurdle, namely sourcing the High Sierra installer app, as Apple no longer make this available for download from the Mac App Store. We were fortunate that with each successive OS update, we retained a backup of the installer following installation. Your circumstances may be different, although you may be fortunate to have retained a copy of the installer in your apps folder. On our Mac, we run the Finder application, then select Applications. Assuming we have retained a copy of the installer, it will be labelled Install macOS High Sierra. As an alternative means, we can right-click the Finder icon, then click Find. We simply type in the search box, and in this instance typing Install is sufficient to locate the relevant installer. If you are still unable to find the installer app, it's likely to no longer be present on your system. This is potentially the end of the line for you, unless you're able to source the installer by other means. Now we need to run 6 commands in Terminal, which will transform our installer app into what will ultimately become a bootable ISO file. In very simplistic terms, Terminal is the Mac equivalent of Windows command prompt. To locate Terminal, we return to our Applications directory, then scroll down to open the Utilities subfolder. With the Utilities folder open, we scroll to the Terminal app and run it. Terminal is now running and awaits our commands. To avoid the need to manually enter these commands, we've included them in full in the written description accompanying this video, enabling you to simply copy and paste them in sequence. We would like to point out that we were not the original authors of these commands, and would like to give credit and thanks to the original authors, and again the articles from which the commands were sourced are linked in the written description. The commands are entered one at a time, with Enter pressed after each. There will be a short pause as each request is processed. The first command creates an entirely empty CDR-DMG file, with a file size of 5.2 GB. This is the basis of our virtual disk. Once successfully run, the virtual disk is created. The second command effectively mounts the disk which we have created, and once concluded, we can see the mounted disk visually represented on the desktop. The third command adds the installer files to the mounted disks, but not before a password is requested. This is simply the password you use at the start of every session to log into the Mac. Note that no characters appear on screen as the password is typed, so we simply type it and press Enter. Although this message in relation to erasing volumes appears somewhat scary, this action is purely performed in relation to the installer, and all remaining areas of the system are unaffected. We therefore type Y to confirm our intention to proceed, then press Enter, and the erasing phase begins. The installer files are copied to disk, which is then made bootable. Finally, the file copy is now complete. The fourth command moves and renames the file we have created, and we now see our installer on the desktop. The fifth command unmounts the original disk image, and the disk is now unmounted. The final command converts to ISO, and the conversion begins. At the conclusion of our command sequence, we now have a file labelled highsierra.iso.cdr. We can now close terminal. Our ISO file is still contained within a CDR, but a simple rename will amend the file format. We therefore select highsierra.iso.cdr and right-click for a menu. Selecting rename, we then delete the .cdr suffix, leaving only highsierra.iso. The system queries the change of file extension, and we click the white use.iso option to complete our file conversion. We now have a file labelled highsierra.iso, which can be transferred to the PC to form the basis of a clean install virtual machine. How that file transfer is achieved is entirely up to you. Probably the simplest method is to use an 8GB or greater capacity USB stick, then copy in Finder, eject the stick and insert into the Windows machine. Alternatively, if the machines are on the same network and properly configured, we could use the Finder app on the Mac or File Explorer in Windows to drag and drop. If using a remote access client such as TeamViewer, we could use the file transfer option, and in a tight spot, we could even use cloud storage or file hosting to transfer files via the internet, assuming a generous upload to accommodate the size of our ISO. We won't cover VirtualBox installation in this tutorial. We're assuming that if you're watching this video, the functionality of VirtualBox is familiar to you and that it's installed on your PC. If you are new to this, we've created an introductory tutorial specifically addressing VirtualBox installation, which is linked in the written description accompanying this tutorial. We therefore pick up with VirtualBox running, and we can now create a virtual machine upon which we can run our ISO. We click New to create our virtual machine, and can assign any name we choose. We opt for the very literal High Sierra, although note that VirtualBox misinterprets this as macOS 10.12 Sierra, so we manually adjust, scrolling down to select High Sierra. With High Sierra selected, we click Next to continue. At the next screen, we select the system RAM, remembering that this must be proportionate to the physical RAM in our Windows machine. Always use duplicates of 1024 MB. We allocate 8GB to the virtual machine, noting that we are running on a 64GB host, and again click Next. We accept the default option to create a hard disk now, and accept the default VDI format for that file, before again accepting the default dynamically allocated file. The size of the virtual hard disk depends upon two factors. Firstly, how much of your physical hard drive you can spare, and secondly, how much you intend to use the virtual machine. As we're purely experimenting, we add a modest 40GB. Your requirements may be different. We click Create and our virtual machine is created. Now we need to tweak the settings, so we right-click on the virtual machine and select Settings. We'll be using this dialog to make changes to System, Display and Storage options, and we start with System. As there's no role for a floppy disk, we simply untick it, then move along to the Processor tab. As High Sierra carries a dual-core requirement, we increase the number of processors to 2. We then move downward to Display, where we increase the amount of video memory from the default to the maximum 128 MB. Finally, we move to Storage, which is where we will attach the ISO generated on the Mac. We click the empty DVD drive, and ignoring the fact that we have previously used the High Sierra ISO, and imagining that this is our first run, we click the option to choose Virtual Optical Disk File. Now we navigate to wherever we have copied the ISO file created on the Mac. Select that ISO file and open it. It's now loaded in the virtual DVD drive. Our virtual machine should be ready to run, except it won't function in this format and we need to enter additional data, this time by summoning the command prompt, which we run as administrator. We therefore click the Start button and type CMD before expanding our command prompt options to run as administrator. User account control will typically query this, and after selecting Yes, we enter the command prompt with administrator privileges. Once again, we've copied the commands required into the written description accompanying this video in order that you can cut and paste. However, in each command you need to replace the Your VM Name placeholder with the name you've assigned to your virtual machine, in our case High Sierra. Rather than individually annotate 6 entries, we paste them into Word or any other text editor, then use the Replace tool, looking for your VM name and replacing it with, in our case, High Sierra, or whatever the exact name of the virtual machine we created happens to be. In any event, 6 replacements should be made. We now copy all 7 lines individually into our elevated command prompt, pressing Enter after each. With the exception of the first command, there is no feedback when successfully applied. These commands assume that you are running VirtualBox version 5 or newer. In the event that you aren't, you can either upgrade or follow the links in the written description for earlier versions. The first command also assumes that you have accepted the default installation location for VirtualBox. As we used a custom installation path, our first command was modified to reflect the actual installation path for VirtualBox. After that, we're simply copying and pasting the remaining commands in sequence. Again, we have reproduced these commands from internet sources and take no credit for them. And again, we have provided links to our sources in the written description accompanying this video. We also couldn't necessarily explain what each command does, but we've tried with and without them, and with is definitely the way to go. In the most general terms, they appear to be applying configuration options which allow the virtual machine to successfully mimic a real Mac. Although, if there are any experts who can break these down, we'd love to hear from you. One extra command which we can easily recognise is this one, which sets the screen resolution for our virtual machine. We can experiment with the values to obtain a screen resolution of our choosing. Although we don't strictly need to enter this command at this stage, we will ultimately need to set the screen resolution. We can now run our virtual machine. In doing so, we are met with hundreds of lines of white text on a black background, which we simply don't see when running a regular Mac. The rule here is not to be scared by anything you read in the text. It will try to play on your doubts, make you believe that files are not found, and generally appear as though the installation will fail at any moment. Have faith, even as the occasional pause gives you reason to believe this will never work, and your faith will be rewarded because the next screen will make you believe. We finally get to enjoy the thrill of the Apple logo on a Windows screen. There's more work to do, but it's the first marker on the road to a working installation. After the progress bar is completed, the screen will momentarily darken before the appearance of the language selection screen. With English selected, we click the arrow to advance. Prior to undertaking this project, we'd never performed a clean installation of macOS before. Unlike Windows, regular clean installations never seem necessary on the Mac. We've never created a Hackintosh, and updates have been a case of evolution rather than revolution. If this is your first installation of macOS, be wary of immediately clicking upon the Install macOS option. We do this purely to show you what happens, but in the real world, we would select Disk Utility at this point. If we follow the incorrect path and proceed to install macOS, we are met with an introductory screen at which we click to continue, then agree to the license terms and confirm our agreement. Then we reach the stage of selecting a hard disk upon which to install the operating system, only to find that there is no disk upon which to install, and this is precisely why we begin with Disk Utility, in order to properly configure the installation disk. Let's rewind time and make the correct choice. This time we select Disk Utility from the outset and click to continue. Although we see a number of disks in this view, our primary hard drive is hidden from us. We therefore click the menu icon in the upper left, which reveals a drop-down menu from which we select the option to show all devices. Now we see an additional drive labelled VBox Hard Disk Media and select it. With the drive's details now shown, we select the option to erase it, which will make it available where our previous installation was halted. Clicking Erase brings up three options, and we change the name of the drive to Macintosh HD, leaving the remaining options at their defaults, before clicking to confirm our intention to erase. The process of erasing commences, and we are advised once the process has completed. We now have a blank formatted drive which will be visible during the installation procedure. We can now simply exit Disk Utility, and we are returned to the main utilities window. This time we can select Install macOS with confidence, progressing as before until we are returned to the disk selection screen, where crucially we now have a drive upon which to perform the installation. We therefore select Macintosh HD and click Install. A short installation phase commences, and at its conclusion we are returned to a further black screen with white text. And we will be advised that boot failed. This should, however, be seen as an indication of success rather than failure. At this point, the installation will be stuck in a boot loop, so we need to eject the virtual ISO which we created. We therefore close down the virtual machine and return to VirtualBox. We right-click our virtual machine and select Settings from the menu which appears. In the Settings dialog, we drop down to click on Storage. At the Storage options, we select our High Sierra ISO. From the drop-down menu, we select the option to remove disk from virtual drive, and the drive now shows as empty. We can now rerun our virtual machine. Our machine can no longer boot from the ISO, and therefore looks to boot from its hard drive. It fails to boot back into the macOS installer, and we need to point it in the right direction. Once the shell prompt appears, we type exit and press enter, which brings us to this boot menu. Throughout this menu, we navigate with the arrow keys and press enter to confirm choices. We therefore use the down arrow to reach the Boot Maintenance Manager option and press enter, which takes us to these further options. We again move down to highlight the option to boot from file. There are two boot options. We are presently booting from the upper option, which doesn't get us very far. We therefore drop down and select the lower option. Now we select macOS install data before selecting the only option, locked files, at the next screen. Thereafter, there is a single choice of boot files, and finally we drop down to select boot.efi, hitting enter once again. This takes us to a further phase of text scrolling. Again, the content of the text is not hugely relevant. We are returned to the familiar progress screen, at the conclusion of which the screen will darken before the longest unattended portion of the installation commences. We can clearly take a break at this stage as the time remaining is immediately apparent. At the conclusion of the installation, the text screens stage their last stand, but eventually they yield and we reach the customization phase. Once the final progress bar is completed, the screen again darkens, and from here it's plain sailing to the finish line. We select the options which are appropriate to our localization and preferences, although naturally you will make decisions based upon your own. We drop down to select United Kingdom as our location, and a British keyboard layout is automatically selected for us. As we're purely testing, we opt not to transfer any information to the virtual Mac. For the same reason, we opt not to sign in with our Apple ID, and we confirm that this was truly our intention from the drop down. We click to agree to the terms and conditions, but truthfully we've never read them. If we had, we'd guess that creating a virtual Mac to run on Windows is most likely viewed as a flagrant breach, which is another reason not to sign in with our Apple ID. We again click to maintain the lie that we have read the license agreement. As we aren't signing in with an Apple ID, we now create a local account. We can edit our icon, although we're quite happy to stick with the football. We enter our name, which automatically generates an account name. Then we enter our password twice for confirmation before adding an optional hint. We opt to customize the remaining settings and proceed without enabling location services, which again requires confirmation at the drop down. We now select our time zone, clicking on the UK to select British summertime, before using the drop down menu to select our location. For smaller cities not included in the drop down, typing directly will yield success. We are given control over the analytical data shared with Apple, and again deselect both options purely to protect our privacy. We leave the Ask Siri option enabled, although as a hardware dependent feature, we would need to assess our microphone pass-through options in VirtualBox. Finally, we pause for a brief moment as the last aspects of setup are performed. Our virtual Mac is now in very good shape. We are required to assist with the identification of our keyboard, which involves nothing more complicated than pressing the key immediately to the right of the shift. Once our keyboard is successfully identified, the keyboard setup assistant clears, and we finally view our macOS High Sierra desktop in all its glory. From here the possibilities are significant, and we can freely explore all that macOS has to offer from the comfort of our Windows PC. One issue which we immediately identified was the problem of inline updates offered from the Mac App Store, which don't operate as seamlessly as they do on a Mac proper. Post-installation, they typically return us to our original setup as though no update had been performed. Once a significant update is performed, we return to this phase of the installation to find that an additional option is present under Boot from File, which introduces additional complications. One of our first acts upon completion of our installation was to head to the App Store and download the Mojave installer. Although simply running the Mojave installer will not successfully update our virtual machine, using techniques similar to those in this video, we've created an installation ISO, which we will hopefully deploy in a future project, particularly were VirtualBox to gain the necessary APFS support. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Hopefully you found it useful. If you can provide a better, faster or more economical solution, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like more, you are very welcome to subscribe to the TechFixFlix YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button. Subscription is of course entirely free and provides easy access to all of the videos posted here. Clicking on the neighbouring bell icon means you will be notified whenever a new video is posted. You can also keep in touch by following the official TechFixFlix Twitter account. Until your next TechFix, goodbye.